All right, we are on air. Today is Thursday, June 13th. Today, this is a meeting to check in on active development tasks for Backdrop CMS. First announcement, we have 2 new contributed projects this week, the menu editor module and the X Autoload module. So thank you everybody who's been working on those. One update on backdropcms.org, our homepage demo button is up. So I'm not sure if any of you have not noticed, but on the homepage, we replaced the Try It on Pantheon button with the demo button, which will spin up a sandbox, a unique sandbox for every person who pushes the button. Sandbox lasts for 24 hours and then is removed. So there are a set of follow-up issues related to the demo button. Actually, most of them are related to the Try It in More Places page in the backdropcms.org queue, but I think the demo button is done enough that we don't have to talk about it in these meetings anymore. Thank you, Nate, for figuring out the issue with the tugboat thing, and everyone else for helping test it and get it going. All right, that's all I have that's not backdrop related. Nate, do you want to start talking about backdrop releases?
Sure. Yeah, this is great. Let's see. We didn't have a meeting last week. Is that right? That was Twin Cities Drupal Camp.
It was the Backdrop Mini Camp.
The Backdrop Mini Camp. Yes, that's right. Let's see. You probably covered that in the outreach meeting previously.
There wasn't anybody there except for me, so we canceled the outreach meeting. Instead, I did outreach.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah, we had a couple people. Paul showed up, but he had a question I thought would be better in this meeting, and then Joseph showed up at the end too. But by that point, I'd already given up. So.
Okay. Well, how about could you recap the Backdrop Mini
Camp? Sure. So let's see. Last Thursday, which is the day before Twin Cities Drupal Camp, we had a mini camp specifically for Backdrop. I think there were 13 people who were signed up for it. 4 people, 5 people traveled from out of state. I don't know, a pretty significant number, which is good. I'm like 2. Well, actually, if you count us and then Wes, I don't know, sure. There was a handful of people, which was great. We had a bunch of different presenters. So we had someone present on upgrades. We had someone present, a couple people do a show and tell. We had Wes come in and do sub-theming for basis. Just kind of a bunch of little sessions, which was pretty good. Most of it we tried to do live streams for. So some of you might have been aware and watching as we did that. If you didn't get a chance to see the live streams and still want to see the videos, they are also posted on our YouTube channel. So you can check those out. There were a couple of things that were more discussion oriented and not so suitable for the live stream video format. And for some of those, we got Kevin to do a recording on site. So we'll eventually have videos for those. But some of them just weren't really suitable for videos at all. So there's a couple of things that from the day that didn't get recorded, but most of it did. So hopefully that'll be good. I think it went pretty well. It felt a little bit like a summit, except for that we had maybe a few more speakers than a summit normally has. Most of the people who were there got a lot out of it. A couple of them had previously attended our trainings, either in Chicago or Florida. And so it was good to have them come back and still be interested in Backdrop. Then we had a couple of local people talking about what they were doing with it and a couple of new people who were excited about what they could do with it. We also had a couple of people reach out right before the camp saying that they really wanted to come, but they couldn't because of travel or timing. So I think it's also telling that there is more interest than what we actually saw at the camp. And it was just, logistically hard to make one particular weekend. So I think that was good. And I think we should shoot to try and do more mini camps. We're going to try and do one at Bad Camp this fall. I'm not sure they've got their summit training day thing sorted out yet, but we will be in touch with them about that too. So I liked it. I don't know, Nate, if there's anything you wanted to add.
Yep, I wanted to say one thing about the summit, and that's that. About the mini camp terminology. Like a couple of years ago, when we did Backdrop presentations or other small gatherings, even like the summits that we've done at Bad Camp, it's a lot of us presenting and like people receiving like, oh, I want to hear about Backdrop. And this was the first time when we went around the room and everybody introduced themselves. It wasn't, I'm interested in Backdrop. We did have a couple of those, but we had multiple people that were like, Yeah, I've been using Backdrop a couple of years now. I've got 2 or 3 Backdrop sites out there, and it's just like, whoa, that it changes everything about the dynamic when people are users. They're like actually out there building Backdrop websites and then coming together and then having show and tells and showing like how I did certain things. Like it was totally different. It was the first time that we'd had this like really everybody coming together and talking to each other, and not so much like us presenting to them. So I found it to be really wonderful.
Yeah, that's great.
Yay! Shout out to Tim for making that happen, because he really, I mean, not only did he run the Twin Cities Drupal Camp, he also took on this mini camp idea and made that happen. So yay, thank you, Tim. Okay, let's talk about Backdrop. So I'm not sure if this is really super news, not because it seems like it happened so long ago, but 113.2 was released, which included a fix that made it so that Backdrop could self-update. Isn't that right? Like we had an issue that Backdrop, when updates came out, it couldn't actually update core because of some missing .info file keys. Clonos also fixed the tests to make it so we won't ever have that regression again, which is really great. And so 113 is out, and I believe all upstreams are updated. I know Pantheon's updated, and the demos are updated. And I do you know about the other upstreams, Jen?
I think platform's updated. I think Docker is also updated. Is that all of them?
Yeah. Well, it does make it so that 113, which came out almost a month ago, actually, 113.2 is the version that we pushed out to everything. So no matter where you get Backdrop now, it's that version, which is great. Let's see. We have one issue that is of note for 113.3. There's a regression that we actually inherited from a cross-port from Drupal. And there's a fix in views, or sorry, it's for the views module. It has to do with the is none of operator when setting up filters. And we've had this regression since 112.5. It looks like we have a pull request that fixes the issue, and a separate pull request that doesn't fix the issue but does contain tests. And the request currently is when you take the tests out of the pull request that doesn't work, put them into the pull request that does work, and then that will be enough to get that done. What are you clapping at, Jen? Oh, you're muted.
Just that we're finally going to eventually get this issue fixed. I'm excited about it. We've been applying this core patch for like a lot of releases.
Well, I mean, when we have regressions, we need tests. That's kind of all. That's the way it works.
It might be worth revisiting our policy on this, because in terms of like taking care of users, it's definitely better to have a fix in than to have a bug that we know is a bug that we just don't care enough to fix because of like policy issues. I understand, like from a developer standpoint, like it would be ideal to get it in with a fix, but I just don't feel like it's better to have software we know is broken when we have a fix waiting for it. And I don't know how we would then enforce the creating of the tests if it wasn't tied up in like hurting people at the same time. But I feel like there's got to be some way to do this. And it might be worth looking at like what other software projects do to see if there is some kind of process that would make it so that we could help people and still get our tests in the maybe not the same time. So I might do some research on that.
Yeah, I'm curious if there is any other alternative. This has been the only way that I've seen it work. So, but that doesn't mean it's not the only way to like say in order for things to go in there, just have to be tests. But yeah, keep me posted. Keep us posted. I'll be curious. Let's see. There's also a lot of other issues in 1.3.13, 43 open issues that are of various these are the items that we consider to be high priority. I've been falling behind on my code reviewing, though. It looks like there's 6 or more RTBC issues, several of which are in the 113.3 milestone. And then there's even more PR works for me tags, which are kind of the less confident version of this looks like it's ready. So there's a bunch of things that need to be caught up there. I'll do my best to get through them. See, Jeff is here. If we can collaborate as well to get as many of these things through. I know Herb also likes to just mark things ready to be committed and not actually merge them. But I'm not sure if it needs to be said, but like, you know, we trust each other. Like everybody has the power, or at least all of our core committers have this power, and it doesn't. Sometimes we fall into the habit of just like, oh, we'll just let Nate merge this eventually. But
well, if it wasn't RTBC before, do you still want to have core committers merge things that haven't been reviewed by anyone else? Because I think what Herb's really good at is testing things that aren't RTBC yet.
Yep, that's
and then
true.
I can understand his hesitation with not wanting to commit them.
Yep,
and you go through the RTBC queue and like commit stuff, and I think Jeff does whatever's needed, which is good.
Yep. We don't have quite the capacity to guarantee like multiple reviews at this point. So sometimes like I'll move stuff from I'll go through the needs to review queue and actually be committing out of that as well.
Okay.
And I think for the time being that that level of directness is good enough. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
We should maybe communicate that to make sure Herb knows. I'm not sure he watches these things.
Yep. I think the only thing we really have is that if you're the originator of the pull request, you can't merge your own.
That's fair.
But you, as a committer, you can move it from needs review to ready to be committed to committing it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point. And that should be communicated outside of just this meeting. Okay, so anyway, 113.3, we've got some things to catch up on. There's lots of great stuff that is being fixed all the time. 114, as for 113.3's release date, we don't actually have very many changes in there yet, so we don't have any immediate plans for when the next bug fix release will be coming out. That'll be on a as is needed basis or once enough fixes accrue to make a release worthwhile. Next up, 114.0 will be the next minor bug fix release that will be coming out September 15th, 2019. The feature freeze will be September 1st. The items that we've got slated here, recapping how we're prioritizing features currently, is that this is true of any Is this true of any community member, Jen, that any community member can be an advocate for one issue?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And the members of the project management committee also are encouraged to kind of have a pet issue and then be an advocate for that issue to push it forward themselves or find other people to push it forward, or even just providing details of how they think it should be implemented. And that's the way we're kind of working to prioritize and bring focus to issues that individuals are choosing one issue at a time, saying this is going to be my priority for this release up until the point that that priority is completed, and then they can choose another one. So to start that off, the issue that I have done for advocating, and the one that we're trying to push, I'm trying to push forward, is digital signatures on packages, which will help facilitate moving towards enabling automatic updates out of the box. And that issue is number 1992. This still is on my plate or on other reviewers' plates to take a look at the code that John Franklin has assembled. He's a really excellent developer, and a lot of his code is kind of right the first time. I know it's like maybe not what we should always be striving for, but I find that like it's just really great, the stuff that he's put together. And so we've been making some progress in improving project module, because we have to fix project module, which is on backdropcms.org, as well as making Backdrop itself utilize the changes in project module. So project module is where the changes are happening initially. I posted a general game plan into that package signing issue, which is 1992. Of the related issues, hang on, I didn't actually post the comment. I'm looking at it now. I'm like, where's my comment? Anyway, I haven't finished it yet. We have a general plan that will improve project module and put CodeSign, the module that he wants to put directly into core, put CodeSign as a standalone module on backdropcms.org first, so that backdropcms.org can start signing packages and generating XML feeds that are signed. And that will make it so that the testing of the module in core and on people's locals will be a lot easier because they'll have actual data to work with for actual signed packages coming from backdropcms.org. So most of the activity is actually happening in project module right now, with the objective of getting that onto backdropcms.org. And then we'll continue working on getting the functionality into core itself. So that's the status on 1992. Still stuck in mostly code review, getting these things reviewed and then accepted and then deployed into project module. That's it. Next up is the fieldable files. The advocate is Jen Lampton, issue 2632. Jen, do you want to go over how fieldable files is going?
Sure. So I have a pull request that was created by Doc Wilmot that I have recently rebased. I'm currently working through some of the weird usability issues with file displaying, where there's a file display mode and a file entity display mode. And I'm trying to merge the configurations for the file display into the little configure cogwheel boxy thing that you see on fields configuration settings, so that it doesn't have to be an entirely separate tab. So hopefully I'll have a new version of that for review before next week's meeting.
Super. That would be great. Let's see, the next two items that we have, Gregory is our advocate, Trusted Host Patterns, issue 2568. As he's not here, I'll summarize these real quickly. Trusted Host Patterns is a simple cross-port from Drupal to make it so that the site domain names need to be specifically whitelisted, or you have the option of specifically whitelisting it. The status of this one is that it needs code review and testing. The cross-port has been completed. I think there's probably still a little bit of discussion around how serious or how firm the restriction should be.
We're not getting rid of base URL like Drupal did when they.
No, this is purely just
in addition to it.
Yeah, this is purely an additional check that would block access to the site if this is specified.
Great.
Yep. Yeah. There's no API changes or anything. It's just.
So is it going to be just optional to add it in to add extra security to your site? Okay.
Yep. That's the current status of things. And
are we going to try to set it on install?
I don't think.
No.
So
one of the biggest complaints about the change that went into Drupal 8 was that it was forced upon people, and so you just ended up locked out of your own site. And so we thought in Backdrop we would allow it. So you want that security, you can turn it on, but it's not going to lock you out by default.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think the current status is that the status report will show you a warning saying that you could set up trusted host patterns if you don't have it set up. That's kind of an interesting question about a warning is something that doesn't create the red dot, so it won't show up as an error in the overall functionality of your site, but it's also something that people try to get resolved. So I don't know, that seems like that's about the right balance. I'm a little bit on the fence still about people upgrading their site and something being wrong with it that wasn't wrong previously.
I think it's fine. That sounds like
Yeah.
a good balance.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, it's also like letting them know about a new feature that wasn't there before. And so if they did want to resolve it, they'd be like, oh, hey, I have this thing now, and they could. So I think like the fact that it's not going to nag them with the red dot is fine. I have a handful of sites that all have like warnings that I just look at every time and go, that's fine. I'm going to ignore those. But yeah, they can fix it.
This is just going to go in settings.php.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we going to, in the warning, are we linking them to somewhere that has the, obviously we're probably putting it in the default settings PHP, are we linking to somewhere online that where we tell people the format of what to put in their settings PHP?
Let's see. So there's a warning. The warning does include a URL. Let's see if it links backdropcms.org/trusted host settings.
I think that's going to move to the API site.
Yeah. So it looks, but yes, here's the link. I'll throw it in the chat. But you need to be an administrator because it's currently unpublished because this feature doesn't actually exist yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's in the works.
Sounds like everything's been thought of then.
That's Gregory for you. Let's see. He's also attempting to advocate for a second issue, which there was some caveat to that. Like I think he was saying, "Oh, this will be in the next version of Backdrop, not the current."
No, it's for 114.
Oh.
So the issue is like if your first issue that you're an advocate is in like a near ready status. So if it's like RTBC or has been close enough that it's ready to be merged, he's allowed to adopt a second issue. So he obviously thinks that one's close. Do you know if there's any outstanding issues with it?
Nope.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there aren't any outstanding issues with it. It just needs review.
All right.
So he's not wrong in that. I just think it's funny, the loophole of if you think it's close enough, you can take a second one. But
well, it's because we don't want him to not do anything, like waiting for a review.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with this. Okay. So the next issue is issue 3755, the ability to create configurable layout templates. Jen, you've been active in this as of today or yesterday. Could you summarize this?
Oh yeah, this is so exciting. Okay, so in panels, there was this layout that was called flexible layout that everybody hated because it ended up building this layout with tables where you added rows and columns. But now that we have the Bootstrap grid system, adding rows and columns creates less ugly output. And so Doc Wilmot's he's had this contrib project for a while that allows you to do a flexible layout. And now he's working on refactoring it a little bit to fit in with the rest of core. So right now, our only question on the settings form is like which layouts are enabled or disabled. And so that's been converted into a table where every layout has enabled disable status. And then once those are enabled, they automatically appear in your layout selection thing. And then all the ones that are configurable have a configure link as well, where you can go and you can add rows or regions to any given part of it. So it's coming along really nicely. It was already really close to start with, and I think it's
I think you cut off there at the very end there, Jen.
I said it's looking likely for 114.
Awesome. Do you want to cover any more of what's happening in this issue? Like it looks like there's a lot of discussion happening, but we don't necessarily need to recap what's happening.
Yeah, there's a meta issue at the top of the issue. If you're curious about what it is, there's a bunch of things that are kind of blockers, and then there's a bunch of things that are nice to have that we could go in or not. And then there's a couple of things we're still discussing. So I think like trying to figure out the URLs for the pages is still under discussion, and then figuring out how to add rows is going to be hard. So let's just talk about it. So yeah, there's just you want a summary, you can just read the top issue.
Cool. All right, that's all that we have for 114 issues that are being advocated for. Let's see, there's a note here that there's also the 114 milestone, which actually only contains those 4 issues. So there isn't anything else that that is slated for 114 at this time. So I would say if there are other issues, like we're not limited to just these things, but if there are other issues and volunteers out there that want to see certain things happen, then becoming an advocate for something is really simple. You say, I would like to be an advocate for this issue. And then edit the summary up at the top and say that you are its advocate. And then I think the process for moving things into the current milestone, you also say, and I would like to request this be in the next minor version, and add the tag milestone candidate -minor. And then if someone else agrees, then it gets prioritized into the next release.
Yeah. In general, if you find an issue that's already tagged with milestone candidate and you want to be its advocate, you can put it in the milestone. You don't have to wait for a second person after you've become the advocate. And that's what most of them have been so far.
Great. Let's see, 115. I don't feel like we need to cover that at this time because there's no things to discuss currently. So let's move into general discussion and Q&A from those that have assembled here. Looks like, Paul, you have a URL question mark, which is Packagist ? Yeah, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, actually, I would like to know if it would be possible to have backdrop on Packagist. So we could use, for example, Composer in some workflows to automatically install it. So it would only require to have one single Composer file inside backdrop without any contrib dependencies on it or anything else. This has other advantages. For example, if one day we want to have a code sniffer package or a coder or anything like that, it could be inside that Composer file as well and automatically check the code syntax that gets in. So I don't know what's your point of view, guys, but for me, this is a mandatory step.
So I know that, first of all, that Jeff has had some thoughts on this as well. It's too bad that he hopped out. I also know that, and I think you're phrasing that correctly, that we don't want to have a build process as part of Backdrop or its dependencies. We'll run down the same kind of rabbit hole that Drupal has gone down once we start going down that path. But you also are making the point rightly that Backdrop itself being accessible via Composer enables other projects to depend upon it and then install and work with Backdrop through Composer. And there's some value in that.
Yep.
Yep. I don't have any thoughts, or I have thoughts, but I don't have strong preferences.
My preference would be yes. I don't really see a downside to letting Core be on Packagist. I think that the only thing I really see are upsides for that. I mean, all the reasons that Paul mentioned, but also there's like increased visibility if it's on Packagist. I just think, I don't know. My concern was mainly around including a file in all contrib projects and making them tie to Core. That I wanted to avoid.
Yeah, definitely would be great. But, I posted a link on the Hangout chat. Do you mind having a look at it? It has a Composer file inside, and this is how I'm installing Backdrop using Composer right now. As Backdrop is not available on Packagist, I have to fiddle in the Composer file, and it would be so much easier if we could just have Backdrop listed on Packagist, so we could have a kind of automatized build somewhere using Docker or anywhere else. I think it's a good idea, and we could start with just a simple Composer file with nothing in it, or the bare minimum, and then we could maybe extend it at will, depending on what we want to do with it. So I don't think it's a huge deal to include such a file if it contains just a name and a description, and that's it. So up to you.
I think that's a reasonable starting point. Is there an issue on in the Backdrop queue already for just adding the composer file? So it might be good to create one and schedule it for something like 114 and let everybody talk about it in that issue between now and then. And if there's no resistance to it, we put it in at that day. And that way, like, we can see what more people think. Like, I'd like to have Jeff add his feedback on that too.
Yeah, please. No problem with me. No problem.
Yeah, I'll add that and put this in the chat as well. That Jeff puts Drush into Packagist as well as Coder, and so the /backdrop namespace is already claimed in the general PHP namespace under Packagist as being for us.
Yeah.
So we do already have that like option immediately available to us that we can use that whenever we want. I'd like to figure out processes. We should have an issue, and then we should figure out what kind of process changes we might incur. Like, I'm curious if that means that we'll need to do some additional steps when we cut releases, for example, and how when we create a new version of Backdrop, if I think Packagist will, with its default assumptions around GitHub, will just use the package that is on GitHub that is not the one that is created by the packager, which is the one that adds the tag of the version number everywhere.
Yes, it's the tag. It just fetch the tag and use them. And that's how it works. That's how it works.
Is there a way to change that so we can get it to work with our process? We can look into it. We don't have an answer now.
Yeah, it's not a very big change that when we package any release, whether it's a contrib module or a core module, it runs the packager and it modifies the .info files to actually include the version number of something. Actually, for core, I'm not sure that that's necessary because it uses the Backdrop version constant.
But
so
we might make changes in the future too, like to include the license file and stuff. Like, there's other things the packager might do. So I think it would be good if we could look into this now and at least figure out if it's an option to get it to use our version. To save us a headache in the future.
Well, and the long term, I mean, the goal that we're working on right now with adding digital signing for automatic updates, that is something that the packager has to do. Like, the package gets validated and signed by backdropcms.org and then included in the package archive. Of course, Composer wouldn't know how to validate signed packages by itself. So we'd also need to teach you how to do that at some point. So anyway, all these things need to be discussed, and actually even like it'd be great to continue talking about what other repercussions could come out of this. So issue first, then we can discuss.
Alrighty, I will create the issue probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you for the discussion.
I saw Mike unmuted at one point. Mike, is there anything you wanted to add? Maybe he's not in a talking area at the moment. Let's see. Anything else? Anyone else would like to add? We don't have anything else on the agenda or discussion points, I don't think.
No, there's not anything else I wanted to add as far as ordering plans.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Anything? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It was great seeing everybody again after the little 2-week hiatus. Great seeing you guys all online, and we'll catch you guys in the issue queue. So thanks, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.
Ciao.